Hey everyone, welcome to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host, and we have the conversation that we all need to have on today. We have on Rusty Jensen, and Rusty, you are not only with an AI company, and we're going to talk a lot more about that, right? But you're the Chief Revenue Officer at ConnexAI, and I want to hear more about what ConnexAI does, but it plays into your background, right? You've been in the CX industry, contact center industries for 20 plus years, heavily involved in not only sales, product, technology specifically, which makes sense why you're an AI company right now. And so we're going to get into a conversation about how AI is going to change the B2B world, but the big question is how, right? And we all know we've taken the leap of faith. There's none of us that say that no AI is going away, right? We know it's going to change our world, but we don't always have a solid plan, right? And we don't know what the first step or even the eighth step is. So I'm going to really enjoy having a conversation with you here today. You also, I just found out, really interesting on your personal side, you're a new beekeeper. You got beehives. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. Why don't you kind of explain a little bit more about your background, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, you bet. So like you said, I've been in CX and contact center for like 20 years. So I've been on the vendor side primarily, helping to design, contact center solutions, and was kind of at the forefront of the transition from prem to cloud contact center technology. Then helped design a lot of reporting technology and actually started getting into AI really early. Like right, when IBM Watson was winning Jeopardy, right? Trying to figure out like how can we get Watson connected in when I was at NICE to perform like agentic AI functions. And it was a little bit not possible at the time, but it was early on. And over time in my career, I've spent a lot of time on the CX, the vendor side, helping organizations to make the right kinds of decisions to improve customer experience. And then recently, of course, with the AI revolution, being right in the core of that, helping to design the products, getting into the details, and actually forming like go-to-market strategies to actually make it work. How do you get it to work? But all this time, Steve, all this time, everybody kept telling me, what's your hobby? What do you do? And I literally, honestly said, I actually don't have hobbies. And somebody sat down, they're like, you need hobbies. And so I started thinking about hobbies, and I started going a little overboard. I started getting into the sourdough bread during COVID, and now I'm a beekeeper, right? So I've got a pretty diverse set of little hobbies. As us beekeepers say, if I run, you run. Definitely.
Well, here's what I'd love to do. I start big, right? And there's not a lack of opinions on the future of AI and B2B, right? But I would like to hear kind of your point of view on that. How do you frame or want us to start thinking about the future of AI in B2B as a place to start?
Okay, great. Well, I think all of us have initiatives on the executive level. So every boardroom in America and in the world is saying, how are you leveraging AI? And I think almost every senior leader I talk to, they're trying to figure out like, how can we find that secret sauce of how AI can give us the big gains and the realizations of these giant changes in the way that business is being done. I think we all know that AI is going to change the trajectory of how business is done. Akin to like the web revolution and the internet. But I think it's this search, as I work with a lot of executives and people, as to what is the solution or the technology, or what's the process, or what's the key unlock that we can find that can pull a lot of pressure off of companies. There's a lot of scrutiny and pressure in the business to business world on profitability and maximizing EBITDA and trying to improve the value of companies, not just on growth, but also profitability. So how can we leverage AI to help us grow profitably? So we all know that that's there, but I think the big thing is this cycle of learning, of knowing the potential, discovering it new, sharing with each other what we're learning, and then being able to find those real key unlocks that do exist, but sort of we just have to find them and get to a point where we start seeing massive upside gains in revenue creation, in savings and labor, and in helping us to differentiate into the future. That's what we're all looking for. And then the big question is well, what happens once we find it? So once we find it, what's that going to do to companies? What's that going to do to business? And honestly, Steve, we don't know yet. We don't fully know. But that's kind of what we're seeing.
Well, you know what I love about what specifically you're doing at ConnexAI is nobody's going to come out and solve the here's what you need to do with AI, right? The app, it's kind of like saying, what do you do with a car, right? Well, I do a lot of stuff with a car, right? I might use it for my work. I might use it for pleasure. I might, it might be my passion, my hobby. I like working on. Like what you're doing is you're saying, we're going to dive deep. We're going to go into a very niche market, the contact center space, and we're going to figure out what AI means there, right? So there is a sea of companies out there that are looking at, and we're not talking, when I say niche, right, we're talking big, right? The contact center industry, I mean, CX is so important. I read a report that came out just over a year ago that said there's $3.7 trillion in play right now in the world of B2B because of poor CX, right? That we all know how, a bad experience can literally take a very loyal customer and move them to one of our competitors, right? So this is how important this is. This isn't a niche thing, but it's an idea of how you're solving a specific problem for a specific industry in a specific niche area, right? And that's what I love, because now you can go deep into the business model and what needs to happen directly there. And that's what really got me excited when you and I would start talking about this, because I was like, everybody's talking about AI. Why should we be talking about AI too, right? What are we going to bring to the party? And I think as a company, you're solving the answer to that question. We should all be thinking individually about how we need to be using AI and what partners we should be communicating with. So how do we, with that kind of a background that developed out of the conversation you and I had earlier here, you talked about, as C-suite leaders, we have to be thinking about profitability and sustained growth, right? And what are, in your mind, what are the key challenges for businesses in achieving sustained growth today? Because I think if we talk on that front and then we can match up AI with those challenges, that's where we're going to have like a really fruitful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting because as I get into different board meetings, whether it's with companies I'm in or consulting, and I think a lot of executives listening to the podcast will relate. A lot of times what will happen, I guess it's like 100% of the time. So the C-suite will go to the board and say, listen, we need more investment. So whether it's on the growth side on sales or if it's in the CX side, and let's use the CX example, we'll come in and say, listen, we need more resources to provide a better customer experience. It's just not getting better. So there's so much pressure on CX. And what we're trying to balance is the customer experience, the employee experience, because I need you to come in at 5 a.m. I'm going to pay you as little as possible. I need you to take this high volume stuff. And if somebody doesn't show up and you're an A player, I need you to come in and cover. And we have to balance the employee experience, the customer experience, as well as cost. And whenever we have a conversation with the board, it's like, hey, I need more resources. And I have this great plan. And what I can do with this plan is I can hire some better people. I can decrease my attrition. It's averaging 38% for contact centers. I can decrease my attrition if I can just pay them a little bit more, bring a little incentives. If I can put a little more into recruiting and bring in some better, stronger people, invest in some processes, give them some gamification technology or something else. If I can just, improve that employee experience, it'll reflect on the customer. And if the customer experience improves, the good news is that they buy more, they refer their friends, and they don't leave. So we've got to keep that under control. And then the answer comes back and says, yeah, I think those are great plans. So here's your investment. It's saving in cost efficiencies, and you can repurpose that money. So you have the same envelope figured out. And then when people, and truly, I do believe this, Steve, most contact centers and customer service groups, they run like machines, right? Their data and analysis. I think we're reaching the limits of what process and technology can do. And what's happening is we're siphoning off all of the gains we get. We're pulling that out of the business and we're pulling that to the profitability line. And it's really squeezing customer experience. Like it's every incremental gain we get is being squeezed, right? That's really what's happening is, and so the board will just say, here's your envelope. And then the second thing they'll say is today they're saying, okay, well, what can you outsource? So what can you outsource to offshore and other places? And recently in every board meeting, what can you do with AI? How can you use AI to create those efficiencies? That's the question. Now, what I will say is that is what everybody is saying and searching for is like, how can we actually get AI to perform? And that's something that ConnexAI has actually figured out. So Connex has actually figured out over the last 3 years how to create those gains that we all know are possible. That AI can do this. Like it has this tremendous potential. In the last 10, 11 months, we've finally gotten to a breakthrough moment where our technology for contact centers, for customer support sales is doing things that it's crazy. It's amazing to see what AI can do. I've never seen anything like it in my career ever.
Well, you know what? Like 3 things that you said I really want to follow up on. One, you talked about like this kind of point of diminishing returns. You know, all the boards, they want to know AI, but they also, nobody wants to keep investing. Like you've got that envelope of money, right? Be more efficient in what you do, but there's only so much efficiency we can squeeze out. And then nobody's saying stop trying to be more efficient, right? But AI provides a whole new plateau of efficiency that you can gain where the board isn't having to approve additional allocations that no board likes to have mid-year additional allocation requests coming towards them. Nobody does, right? So I love that, what you're saying. But I want to also accentuate this as for the audience here, this isn't for just a CX audience. This isn't for just a contact center audience. This is for everyone. Not only is there all that money in play from poor CX, McKinsey had a study in 2023 that talked to over 400 highly profitable B2B and B2C companies. And they found that the number one differentiator in the market, the most profitable companies, the number one differentiator was CX, right? So what we're talking about here is not just a niche play. This is a new cornerstone to differentiation in the marketplace. And if we don't get it right, somebody else will, and we will not be the victor. So when we're talking about getting CX right, that's what this conversation is about, right? And so I just want to put that on the table. So here's the thing here is there's uncertainty, right? We're, like we said at the beginning, we've all bought into it's going to change the world. We just don't all know how. Your company has bought into some of it, but you and I were talking about it before we started recording. You're still selling into uncertainty, right? There's tremendous risk. As much as you can demo and you can say the tech is here, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. B2B purchases always have a high degree of risk. This now has kind of another level, right? Because you're asking people to be the trendsetters, right? You're asking people to be first adopters. How do you, and for the benefit of the audience here, how do you address that objective?
Well, it's a great question because right now, there's a lot of how this new technology, like when you think about early adoption of new technology, how it kind of goes. You have a whole bunch of organizations and people that see the potential of AI. That's why every B2B company says AI this, AI powered that. The marketing is way ahead of the sales team, and then the sales teams are way ahead of what products can actually do. And as we're innovating as a culture, as a whole culture, we are innovating together. What's happening is that people are saying, look, I have some ideas on how AI can work. Let's partner together. I'll give you a free trial. You try it out. Let's test it and see if we can build it. Less honest vendors are saying, we can absolutely do it. Just sign up with us and we'll give you a free trial. And then on the background, they're like, yeah, can you guys figure this out? Right? Like that's happening. But we've seen this story before with websites and cloud, premise to cloud and all these kinds of things. And as we're in the innovation phase, we also get a little amnesia on Like, what does it actually take to get these kind of systems in place, and what actually comes out the other side? Luckily at ConnexAI, we've been doing it for about 3 years, right? Where we've been full, like literally 180-degree pivot directly at AI for 3 years. Every resource, every person, whole hog, we bet the company on it. And for the first couple of years, that's what it was. It was, hey, let's experiment together, let's learn together, let's build together, see what happens. Successes, failures, successes, failures. And as we've gone through it, what we've learned is that the deployment of an AI that can actually achieve the promise, and the promise is it can perform at the level of a human and create efficiencies enough that we can create enough capital and buy enough resources to take what the AI is saving us and reinvest it back into all of these amazing initiatives to truly create a competitive advantage in CX or sales or whatever it is. And what we can look at and just say, hey, what does this really mean? What it means is replacing humans or operating at the level of humans is not that simple. ChatGPT makes it look like it's easy, right? And it's a beautiful product, but it's not that easy. Humans are very complicated. What we do and how we operate and how we execute, it's very complex. And there is a certain things that AI can do, and there's certain things that humans can do better. But really what the future of it looks like is kind of what we're seeing now, which is we can bring in AI that can, in reality, divert 65 or 70% of interactions. Crazy numbers. So when you did like self-service IVRs, press 1 for this, we won't make a payment yourself. That's like 7%, you're killing it. This is 70. Crazy. Okay. But they're the repetitive transactions. They're the things that are coming in. Hey, I want to check my order status. Can I check my order status? I need to pay a bill. I need to pay a bill. Can you answer questions? What time are you open? Can I schedule an appointment? But even in doing that, it's a multi-step process that you have to control. That an AI has to be able to talk to someone. That's one. But then it has to be able to look up all the systems that a human would look at and integrate into those systems and access that data, read it, interpret it, ask questions. If I ask a question, if I'm like a law firm and I want to see the damage that was done to a vehicle, or like an insurance company, text me the picture of the damage so I can estimate it. The AI has to be able to look at that and have computer vision, see it, and have the knowledge to estimate. It has to be able to access payment systems and CRM databases and potentially websites and knowledge bases, maybe even contact somebody on the back end to ask for approvals, update tickets and tasks, and then follow up on them. And then if we don't resolve our conversation, call you later, text you later, interact in the ways that humans would with the same tools. I can talk, I can text, I can email, I can access this tool, this tool, this tool. Now, when you start thinking about that and how far a call can go, this is work. This is not buy a software and then it'll just do it. It's like hiring a person, and it's like managing a person and ramping and onboarding a person. It's just that this person can work 24/7, 365, doesn't come in late, doesn't show up drunk. Like, that's what it can do. But then it needs to escalate. I need to talk to your manager. I don't want to talk to an AI. And it has to be able to take everything it's learned in that conversation, hand it off to a human who then can take it to the next level. And they have to work together. And you have to be able to see them both in the system talking to people and measure both of their activities. And then what it becomes is, well, you as a human, let me take all the automated tasks because I'm good at that as an AI. I'll handle these interactions because I can do that really well, like you. But there's some stuff I just can't do. Let me just hand it off to you. You can do the more sophisticated stuff. And here's the cool result. That partnership, because it's a partnership, that partnership is making it so that the humans that are your A players, that are the people that were previously getting pressure, can slow down, provide a better personalized experience. They can execute at a volume that's tenable. They can work hours that are tenable because the AI can cover after hours. And they can actually invest in delivering an experience that's phenomenal. And we can start doing proactive customer service, and we can start doing things that's a totally different level. And we can take all that money, pay them more, pay the supervisors more, invest in these people. And now you have something where you're cutting costs for yourself by 40%, You're passing savings on to your customers. You're providing a better employee experience. Like this is literally like the holy grail of leveling things up. But all it does is buy us more time to do the right thing. And we've been stepping on our customers and doing the wrong thing for a while to try to save money. But we really have to invest in doing the right thing. That's where the competitive advantage comes in. So it's actually kind of cool. It's very exciting to see like real results at this level.
What's really interesting for the broader audience here, there's not one of us that said, doggone it, if I had more time, look at the list of all the stuff, the proactive stuff I want to get to that I never can. My team has that same list. Employees all throughout the organization, we all have that same list or our own list. If we as an organization can get to our proactive lists, what could we do, right? So one of the things that I wanted to focus on here is you did a really good job of doing what I think we all have to do when we talk about AI. And it goes back to a Harvard Business Review study that I read that we remember things 22 times better when we tell it in the form of a story, right? So you took us down the path of a story. It wasn't, here's the technical side of AI. It's what do you want to accomplish, right? I want to give my people more time. I want to have more resources. I want to upscale my people. I want to pay my people more. I want to make more out of my people. High performance teams drive businesses, right? So it's like, that's the promise of AI, right? Now, if I buy into that, now I want to look at your AI, right? What the B2B world falls into is look at my products and my feature sets, right? Look at what I can do instead of let's focus on what we need to help you get done, right? And that bigger picture. And I think you just did that brilliantly. And that's exploring the AI use cases, right? It's like, how does it apply to your business? You didn't once in there say why your technology was better, right? But I'll want to get to that once I buy into why I want to understand that. And I think we leap so quickly to AI as it's just going to have these blanket things that we do, but you took it down to no, here's specifically what this AI use case is going to do for you. You demystified it. And there's a lot of mystery around AI right now, right? So I think that's one of the things that I'm taking away already from this conversation is how do we demystify it? Let's talk about specifically what's it going to do, how's it going to benefit from me, and then how do we get there? And by the way, you're solving for a very specific use case. You're the experts in that use case, and I know that there's not a lot of experts in that use case. So okay, let's talk more. So if I could, the next thing is there seems to be, and also around the aura of AI, it's just going to be complex. It's hard. Like, how do I even go about implementing this? And, the world of SaaS has had one of their big objections has been, I got to retrain all my people. And, we've been getting by over here. It's not perfect, but I don't want to upset the apple cart and everybody's going to have to learn everything all over again. And then people are going to be scared about their jobs are going to go away. Like, how do you address that?
Well, I think fundamentally, it's important to understand on the macroeconomic perspective, right? And this is because we're kind of talking as executive, like we just understand from a macroeconomic perspective, our ability to innovate and create new ideas and new work for ourselves is extreme. So if we create time with AI, so we create time and we create resources, what we're going to do with those time and resources is we're going to add and we're going to innovate and we're going to add to our offerings and continually compete and create more. Because the desire for us to accumulate more, to build new innovation, it never ends. The limiters are not our ideas and our minds. The limiter is the resources, the ability, the money, the ability to actually execute. And all AI does is it opens that up. So everybody just needs to be a little confident. Remember, during the Industrial Revolution, when manufacturing came in, there was this gigantic fear. And this is not political, but it was the basis of some of Karl Marx ideas was that that, and I'm not advocating or not advocating, I'm just explaining that this automation is going to cause organizations to create so much automation that it'll create mass layoffs. So all these people will not have jobs. That never materialized. There was these ideas in the early 1900s that everything that could be invented was invented, but that none of those things materialized at all. In fact, the economy just became more and more and more and more and more dynamic. It may be that we all live in, Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse and we're trading virtual real estate. Who knows? But we're going to innovate to a point where we'll create more always. The way to think about it with AI is let's put in these mechanisms use case by use case. And let's think very linearly through our entire process. If I can solve for this one use case, that's, for example, in a contact center, people keep calling to find out what's going on with their order. They keep calling about it every time. The customers are like, oh, gee, why don't you just log in and look at your order? Well, let's just have AI handle that. Suddenly, 25% of the calls are gone. Wow. Okay, that's use case one. Now let's expand. Now, as vendors, so this is not software. This is like digital people. So it's different. Like humans are complex. So as we start building in these like use cases, like I can solve this one use case, solve for it, done. Let's take an agile approach. What's next? Well, there's also these billing questions. All right, well, let's start doing the billing questions. And then once that's solved, then it's like, well, how about this automation process? It's taking us a minute and a half on average to process an order change. Can the AI just listen to the call and then process the order change? Sure. So we move to that use case, right? So in essence, what's happening is we're kind of looking at an incremental set of improvements that create time. And what we found in actually doing it, because it's this mystery, in actually doing it, it's more like a managed services thing than it is selling a software. Because creating these complex motions is more like managing and training and onboarding people than it is turning on software and continually managing and optimizing their job, what systems it has access to, what it can accomplish, training it, teaching it. It's more of a managed services over time. And then as that frees up resources and now you have a tool set of capabilities, it's very important that executives know what to do with that and that they're setting right expectations. And I'll give you a hint, and if you're in private equity or venture capital, don't give it to them, okay? Give it back to yourself to accomplish your goals. And I love investors, I promise you. But let's hit the financial targets and the frameworks, but let's improve the business with that money and that time that we create and have a continuous improvement approach and work with vendors who get it and understand it and can help deploy use case by use case. And suddenly, as you kind of go use case by use case, you keep working through it. A year from now, you look up and it's 75% of your volume. And then you have all this extra capital. And now you've kind of let some of those people that were going to attrit anyway go away. Now you've got all this extra capital and money, and you invest it back in your people and your teams. And then you give the investment groups and the board what's due to them and the improvements that they're expected. But you've got a broader strategy on how you're going to build a better foundation for your company to really lead out and innovate and differentiate. And the faster you can get there. So I'm a little bit of a nerd, Steve. Okay, but I'm going to say this. An economist named Joseph Schumpeter, and his theory was innovation creates profitability. And that was essentially his basis in his theory in economics. If I can innovate, create new ways of doing things, create time, create money, create resources, and I can do it in a new way, for a period of time, everyone else has to play catch up. And while they're playing catch up, the market prices won't adjust to me. They'll stay where everybody else is. So that margin, I get to keep and invest and use to continually get ahead and innovate. So for a period of time, if you're an early adopter, there's a huge advantage if you could do it right, because then we can innovate. I can figure out a way to grow. I can figure out a way to retain my staff. You got 38% attrition? Mine's 5%. Well, how do you pay them that? Wow. Like it's these new secret sauces. That's what's fun in business. I think that's what gets us all going. But that's what creates profitability, is that innovation. So and AI is the best thing going right now to be able to do that.
So I have to tell you, I love the conversation here because it's not going into here's the Gen AI applications, here's agentic AI applications. It's business level, C level, board level. Hey, if we want to innovate, if we want to have more profitability, if we want to reinvest in our company from within our own resources, how are we going to do that? What's our playbook to do that? Right. And you just laid that out brilliantly. Uh, I have one last question to ask of you. Okay. Because we've just covered a lot already in this conversation, and I think we could probably do a 5 series podcast, right? And we talk forever. But if there was one thing that you wanted people to know and remember, take away from this conversation about AI and impact in the B2B world, what would that one thing be?
I would say that the one thing I would say in terms of like leveraging AI in the B2B world is you have to stay on the path, identify some specific use cases, and work with vendors who are on the other side. So it's hard to find. You have to sift through a lot of things. Okay. But don't get stuck in testing too many vendors. Try to find vendors and partners who have gotten to the other side. So the mystery and the chaos of what actually works, work with people who are actually on the other side of it and say, okay, I've been through the path. Come this way. Let me show you. Here's what you need to think about. This is how we can get you to that result. That networking and finding companies who have actually gotten there and are seeing those breakthrough results, that's what you want to find. And I would say a little less experimentation, a little bit more people have got to the other side, but there will be experimentation as you go, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. So having seen what's happened to these companies, I've never seen it, Steve. In all of software, I've never seen it before, ever. I've never seen 75% of labor cost shifting. I've never seen 500% increases in revenue. I've never seen stuff like that. I've seen, oh, we had a 14% improvement here, but I've never seen these massive leaps. But they're there. You just need to get with people who've made those jumps and make sure that they've got the right rigging and the right processes so that when you jump, you got the parachute, you've got the everything going. You've also got the Red Bull playing so you can post it on YouTube. Like, you got to make sure you've got all that infrastructure and let's network. Let's help each other. Let's help each other figure out where those wins go. That's what I would say.
I love it. Here's what I know is going to happen, Rusty, is that people are going to have questions. Is it appropriate if I give out a link to your LinkedIn profile so people could reach out?
Yeah. Happy to do it.
Well, fantastic. The mission of this podcast is to bring together different perspectives from a C-suite level of the things that we need to be focusing on, the gaps, the challenges, the innovations, the testing that we're all doing out there. And how do we bring the best of all that together and share it with each other, right? And that's the rising tide that lifts all boats. And I think you did that in a big way today. So I just wanted to say thank you.
You bet. Well, it's good to be with you, Steve. Appreciate it.